everyone is entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And I guess sort of in advance of the fake news crisis, I've believed we're headed toward a place where there's just more and more subjectivism, and we don't have a lot of shared dialogue, and it's because we don't start with shared facts.
Listening to the Liquid Flannel Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I am Chuck Williams. Joining me in Nebraska is Brendan Williams. Brendan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Every week I think this is crazy, and then the week after that it just goes. It just keeps going.
It's just more grist for our mill, man.
Exponential craziness, man. We're going for baby steps. And joining us in Arlington, Texas is the great Matthew Hodges. Matt, how you doing, man?
You know, I'll tell you, I'm a little pissed off, actually.
Oh, really?
I had such a funny joke to write that I'd written for our intro, and then they fired Scaramucci, and now it's completely irrelevant. Like,
you know,
the Mooch screws the pooch again.
With all of the ridiculousness that's going on in the Trump administration.
Dude, it was so fast, it reminded me of a Hanson song. It was like, in an umbop, you're gone. In an umbop, you're not there.
Yeah.
So
and then you get old and you lose all your hair.
Man, maybe we need to
That's
cut a
lyric
little
in the
Hanson
song.
into here, you know, just to rest in peace Scaramucci's political career with Trump. Although he may be back, we'll have to see. But in addition to that, we want to talk a little bit about all the people that tend to be jumping ship voluntarily via the public press, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like maybe the cracks are starting to form, and some Republican op-eds are just leaking out of being like, maybe this isn't so great, guys.
Yeah, we gotta come to our senses.
But, you know, the Democrats don't have it all together either.
No, they don't. And in fact, they seem to be going the opposite direction. Instead of, you know, taking the W, they seem to want to be, you know, trying to work with these people whose party is absolutely crumbling. And yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to look at what the Democrats are up to after our excellent roundtable last week on Nancy Pelosi's better deal that they're still trying to defend on Twitter. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that too.
There's a lot to be said indeed on that, as well as on Nebraska's very own Ben Sasse wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, and we will cover that, and it'll kind of bleed into our high note. So all this and more, so I guess why don't we just jump right in?
I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening me.
Okay, so I think my favorite thing about the Scaramucci thing so far is all of these people who are going like, guys, like, look, I know you want to laugh about this, but, I mean, the guy had to sell his company, his wife divorced him, he doesn't get to see his kids, like, this isn't a laughing matter. And then them just being absolutely dunked on left and right, going like, how is this not funny? Like, nobody held a gun to his head and made him take this job that was obviously a bad choice.
Yeah, that makes it way funnier. It wouldn't be funnier
it
at
makes
all
it way funnier.
if that didn't happen.
The fact that he sold a company to Chinese people, like,
right,
just to take the job.
I mean, if only there was some way for him to know that Trump doesn't reward people's loyalty. I mean, he was just blindsided by this.
If only there was some way to know, if there was something to tell him, like history or something, you know, like
right.
If only
even just the past
thing.
6 months history, you know, if only there was some way for him to know that this administration is so deeply dysfunctional and that the president will fire someone on a whim just because whatever, it makes his ego feel bad.
Well, and the craziest thing is, like, he probably would still have a job if he didn't just fly off the handle and go on a, like, profane rant on the record with a reporter.
Right.
Like, it's not like they was like, he did everything right and Trump just tossed him to the curb. It's like, no, he totally shot himself in the face.
Yeah.
Like,
guys, the lesson here is that you shouldn't go on a coke rampage with the New York Post Was it New York Post, the New Yorker?
No, it was the New Yorker.
It was the New yeah.
I've had so much trouble keeping that straight. There's too
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, the lesson is you shouldn't go on a cocaine fueled rampage with the New Yorker before you even start your job, or you might lose it. Like I don't know whether that's funny. That's an
Might have
important.
just been alcohol there.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned. I mean, you win some, you lose some. You just got to learn from it and move on.
Yeah.
Maybe change your dose.
Yeah, in your own apartment, separated from your family.
Right.
But yeah, I think the thing that blows my mind is all these people now saying like, well, we have to applaud Trump for doing the right thing.
What?
and firing him. You know what I mean? Like, this is a step in the right direction. It's bringing normalcy back to the White House.
I don't know about that. I don't know that there ever was a thing called normalcy in this administration.
I just love what the organizational chart looks like, or the like the Game of Thrones is going on. Oh my God, am I a liberal now? I just compared our politics to Game of Thrones.
Yeah, dude, stop that. Cut it out,
Okay,
dude.
so Trump hires Scaramucci to come in so that he can push for Sean Spicer to be replaced. Scaramucci put Sarah Huckabee Sanders in place and then starts agitating to get rid of Reince Priebus, who gets fired. Trump appoints John Kelly, the new chief of staff, who then comes in and fires Scaramucci. It's amazing.
Dude, it was just Trump's four-dimensional chess game where he wanted to get out Priebus and Spicer anyway, and he was like, but it'll look bad if I do it. I need somebody to come in as, out of left field, just do my dirty work for me, get in, get out.
Right.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Scaramucci came in like a freaking cluster bomb, man. It's just like he came in and took everybody out. It was just like Spicer, Priebus, his 9 months pregnant wife, and now himself, so I don't know.
But yeah, I think anybody who's trying to say that this was some sort of like intentional plan by Trump is totally deluding themselves. And I think the proof is just in the fact that Scaramucci is going through a messy divorce right now. Like,
Right.
if this was all some sort of game, I don't think that would be happening.
Well,
Right.
and speaking of games, everyone with Liquid Flannel knows that I like to compare things to sports, but when it comes to Scaramucci's political tenure in the Trump administration, the only sport I can think of that has the same kind of lifespan is mechanical bull riding. Like it's like you're on, you're off. That's it. It's like, whoa, man, I didn't even know what happened. So
I think that is a pretty good comparison for just participation in the Trump administration. It's
Mechanical
like a
bull.
bull
Hop on
riding
the bull,
competition.
dude.
It's like a rodeo where it's just like, how long can you hold on to this wild
Seriously,
ride?
Then you get bucked off, and they have to bring in the clowns and stuff to distract
The
them.
clowns are everywhere. There's so many
The
clowns.
Scaramucci's. Man.
Yeah, so my question is then, I mean, obviously John Kelly doesn't have the kind of patience for, he's a military man, doesn't have the patience for the, this circus, this rodeo that we've seen. So under his, my question is, under his chief of staff reign, is he going to actually get this administration working functionally?
I mean,
or more comparatively functionally, or is he going to just run screaming from this job in like 3 months?
I mean, it's mind blowing to me that he would even accept
the
this
job. Right.
Like, I don't understand what is in it for him. Like, if you're a respected general, you're running the Department of Homeland Security, right? That's a pretty important job. If you're a respected general, you might think, I'm doing a very important job right now. But then
Right.
Trump comes over to you and says, like, hey, man, I got everybody who works for me. I don't know what I'm doing. People are leaking all over the place. The morale is low. Screw that Homeland Security nonsense. What
Yeah.
I need you to do is come over and babysit everyone. And then this
Right.
guy goes, okay, sure. Great idea, Mr. President. Like, I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
don't
right.
understand the thinking there.
Well, especially since, liberal commentators, NPR loves to talk about how, this is a president who likes it when his staff is all infighting. Like he thinks that, his staff being competitive and backstabbing, that's good because it keeps people, on the edge of their seats all the time. They're always bringing their A game, which, I mean, I think the proof that we've seen over the past few months isn't that, since they can't get anything done. But also, like, if that's the case, if that's actually cogent analysis, then why would he have hired a chief of staff who's completely opposed to everything like that?
Well, one thing that I like is how, people that have no concept of business that voted for Trump anyway, saying, he's a business guy. Business guys want as few people reporting to them as possible, and they want to delegate as much of the work downstream as possible. So the idea that he would put so many people under him and circumventing Reince Priebus to begin with, that's puzzling to me, because it's like either he doesn't know how to run good, successful business, or he just felt like he couldn't trust Reince, which is like, well, why would you have him in the first place? So,
right. Well, but we know that he doesn't know how to run good, successful business.
Right.
For one thing,
we know that
he's got this,
but 30% of America doesn't.
Ripping people off until he finally declares bankruptcy, and then also, shit, I had another thing. So,
my bad, man.
But I think, is it possible for him to even get the White House back on track? Like, even if he took complete control and just started running a tight ship over there, they're so far behind. In order to get something back on track, there has to be a place where tracks exist and a goal to get to somewhere, right?
Right.
That is not there. So even if he is the most effective, manager of all time, without a direction and without, steps to hit along the way, no matter how good you are at running, an organization, if your organizational goals are incoherent and impossible, there's nothing that you can do.
Yeah, like if you're in charge of running disorganization,
Right.
Like,
and so, Trump, in a normal administration, you might say, okay, they had some problems, but they're bringing in this new guy. He runs a tight ship. Like, maybe you can get back on track.
It's going to turn him around.
Right. You know that Trump is incapable of doing that. He's incapable of going out on Twitter and saying stupid nonsense every day that just starts a new media firestorm.
Right.
I mean, this guy's a general. How do you think he felt about when Trump was out there just freelancing military policy about transgender soldiers?
Yeah, for sure.
That's not procedure. So even if let's say Trump wanted that to be his goal, this guy is supposed to effectively make that goal happen when literally no one agrees with Trump that that's a good policy idea. So even if he was trying to effectively do that, the policy idea is still going to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no clear agenda coming from the top. It doesn't matter how good an executor you are of somebody's agenda if there's no clear objective. Trump can't keep himself to one topic long enough. Like, he's not even out there. He doesn't go campaigning for the healthcare bill. He doesn't go out there, as soon as it looks like the wind might be blowing the other direction, he says, well, this isn't going to be on me. That's got to be incredibly frustrating for someone with a military background. And yeah, like you said, I can't imagine why the man would ever take the job.
Right.
And I mean, now he's got to find a new communications director, which has to be an impossible task. Like, who are they going to possibly find to fill this role after the last guy that everybody told Trump, like, this is a terrible idea. People were like, if you do this, I'm going to quit. And then did. And he did it anyway. And it blew up in his face. Like, when you've got the president making decisions like that, absolutely no amount of discipline or, military-esque structure is going to save you.
Yeah, right. One of my favorite takes I saw on Twitter about this was, remember that when they started, Trump was with his A team. These are like the front of the bench people that he was putting into positions.
Right. Oh, and there were so many people during the campaign. I mean, Trump himself said, I'm going to hire the best people. So even though I'm not experienced, I'm going to
I'm gonna
hire
have
the best,
people working for me.
Right. And then, said there were people making excuses for him during the campaign saying, like, Trump's going to get the best team. He doesn't have to be an expert because, if he just
He
reads,
surrounds himself.
right, if he just studies for an hour on any topic, he can be a genius at it. And it's like,
I can't
well, you know
believe
what?
people
That
bought that.
clearly is exposed as
I've
a
heard that
huge
before.
fraud.
I think we're gonna end up with like Scott Adams being the next communications director.
He just like a Dilbert cartoon instead of a press
Seriously.
briefing every day.
Did you see that? Someone said, "Dude, you look like you're not aging very well," and he sent them back a picture of his like torso. Like,
Oh, Scott Adams?
shirtless torso, like
Oh,
to
yeah.
prove he'd been.
Oh, he's
working out.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah. It is funny that he would be such a Trump guy because his Dilbert comics really show, like, the pointy-haired boss is Trump. Like,
Right.
that guy's full Trump, where he's at the top of the company, but he has no idea how anything works, and he just makes, like, stupid ideas, and then people try to accomplish his stupid ideas and fail, and then he makes fun of them for failing. I mean,
right. But
you'd think that this guy, of all people, would identify, like, wait a minute, this isn't good management style. I can't get on board with this.
except the flip side is that Dilbert is like the beta male, and Scott Adams might be the beta male looking up to the boss, thinking, "Man, the boss, he's able to talk to women the way that I want to talk to women."
Oh
And,
no,
you
obviously haven't been following Scott Adams beyond Dilbert then, because he thinks of himself as this like mind controlling, alpha male. He's like giving sexual homework assignments to all of his thralls that he talks to through his blog and stuff. Like,
Wow.
like no, dude, you're not some polymath genius. You just happen to hit that like mid 90s ennui about how stupid my boss is and made a whole bunch of money. That doesn't make you
Right, dude.
that doesn't make you a Renaissance man.
I can't even imagine what Dilbert groupies must be like. That's just, it's something that I have a lot of
They've
trouble
got
envisioning.
wrinkled ties, that's for sure. Dogs wearing spectacles and shit.
Well, speaking of jumping ship on the Republican Party, I mean, do you think, is this the beginning of the end for Trump? I mean, I guess like once Trump got nominated, it was really the beginning of the end, but it seems like the downward trajectory has just been accelerating here in the last couple weeks.
Well, because we're actually seeing some Republicans come out against him or saying, this could be the end of the Republican Party as we know it.
Well, in the words of Winston Churchill, it could just be the end of the beginning. But, well, I think that everyone's starting to grow a little bit of a backbone, and it seems to all be at the same time, right? So,
Oh, I don't think it's backbone. I think it's just ass covering.
Oh, it's total self-interested, like
Preservation.
hey, like maybe I
Gotcha.
need to start distancing myself so that maybe I don't get tied to Trump as an anchor dragging me down during
Right,
the
yeah,
election.
backbone would have looked like, I don't believe that this president's actually going to do anything good for us, and I'm going to oppose him when he's wrong, back before he started making all of these mistakes. Yeah, now it's just trying to cover their ass.
But yeah, I mean, I think the Obamacare repeal failure, even though it's like, is it really dead or, who knows,
right.
Like a horror movie, the sequels just keep coming and they just keep finding more and more outrageous ways to bring the villain back over and over again. But that, I think, was the last straw for a lot of Republicans, right? Is saying, that after this huge, embarrassing public failure that has made us all look like idiots, it's time to say, look, we can't be standing behind Trump anymore. A sitting Republican senator published an op-ed earlier this week called "My Party is in Denial About Donald Trump. We created him, now we're rationalizing him. When will it stop?" This
Right.
is by Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. A congressman from Colorado published an op-ed called "The Republican Party is Dead." This is a Republican sitting congressman. And more people, it seems like, have been increasing their vocal, opposition to the president, even though maybe they're not actually doing much other than just saying, like, this is not a good look, you guys.
Right. Well, and that was my question, right? Because I didn't read the Jeff Flake article, but I did read the one in the Denver Post, the Republican Party is dead one.
That's Ken Buck,
this
Republican
is from,
congressman.
Ken Buck.
Yep.
And as far as I can tell, what he's advocating for is more of basically what Paul Ryan wants to happen, what Mitch McConnell wants to happen. It's all these dog whistles about, we're on the wrong track. What we really need to do is, and then coded language for like gut entitlements, not raise taxes on rich people. Like it's all exactly the same policy platform. I think he's not mad about Donald Trump being president so much as he's mad that Donald Trump is so inept that they can't get any of this ghoulish shit done.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we've been kind of saying this for a long time, and a lot of people on the left have been saying this, is like, look, Trump's not even a Republican. Like, he says he's a Republican, he ran on the Republican ticket, and he's a Republican president.
Right.
But he's not into what is traditional Republican ideology. He doesn't care anything about that. Republicans thought, that doesn't really matter because we're going to do that Republican stuff and he'll just sign it and he doesn't actually need to be involved. But it's turning out that that's not actually the case. You actually need the president on your side to understand what you're doing to help get those ideas to the finish line in an effective way. And
yeah,
so,
I mean, they needed an ideologue, and what they got was a guy who, I mean, he's somebody who would have thrown a temper tantrum if he didn't win like second place in the student council election in high school. Like all he cares about is acclaim. So as soon as it looks like he's not going to get that, he just abandoned ship.
right. So I mean, they're not out there saying like, Republicanism is dead because of what Republicans stand for being ineffective, even though they should be doing that.
Right.
They're out there saying Republicanism is dead because we've tied it to Trump, and Trump is a horrible figurehead for our party. Right. So, they're coming at it from that way.
Well, and meanwhile, you can tell that they're in exactly the same ideological space too, because this Ken Buck article does the little like sleight of hand thing that they love to do, where he says, those who called themselves Republicans have a strong heritage. Abolitionists founded the party to rid this country of the scourge of slavery.
It's like we know you guys are the ones that liked black people first. We know.
Right. Yeah, we know that.
We know that.
He brings up Abraham Lincoln. He brings up Teddy Roosevelt and trust busting. It's like, that most of us know that that's not what the party stands for anymore and hasn't stood for since like the 1950s.
Right. Well, and it's also interesting. I mean, he's bringing up near the end that Coloradans are the ones that can show the way forward and stuff. We have a vision for the meaningful. We can pass a balanced budget amendment, a responsible spending bill, reforms on health care, blah, blah, blah. All these things. And it's like, yeah, but you guys also have legalized marijuana, which is a real good cushion for doing all the things you're talking about there. And nobody else has that. So
yeah, that's a really good point.
I mean, that's one luxury that you don't get everywhere else. So
right. Well, I mean, look, if some Republican congressman from Colorado wants to go out and say,
advocate for
right,
this, yeah,
like,
no, I'm all for it.
It's
for
working
sure.
for Colorado. Maybe you guys should try it.
I'm not going to look gift advocacy in the mouth. So.
But yeah, I think a lot of these, Republicans, they're not attacking Trump because of his republicanism. They're attacking Trump because he's hurting republicanism.
Sure.
And
the brand.
They're not like switching sides. Although the Democrats certainly think that a lot of Republicans
are ready
want
to
actually switch sides.
Right.
Well, you had mentioned that before too, that you were wondering if people were going to switch parties coming up before this election. Didn't you say that?
Well, I think as the Republicans are finding now, it's going to be a really challenging election for them to run on the Republican ticket when Trump is dragging them down. So now they kind of have to play this game of separating Republicans from Trump.
And from Democrats.
Right. Or they could say, look, now we're the party of bipartisanship, right? We're Republicans need to work with Democrats and, we need to change our tone. So I think people like Dean Heller in Nevada and people like, the other senators who voted against health care.
The kind of senators that called Trump crazy on a hot mic.
Right. Those kind of, exactly. Those kind of senators who are saying like, this is nuts behind closed doors.
Right.
They have a choice to make. Do they continue down this Republican ticket? Can they do enough to separate themselves from Trump while still being a Republican? Or do they need to actually go full circle and say, look, I'm not a Republican anymore, as some people have done, not any sitting Congress people yet, although, in past years, that has happened. I mean, people have totally flipped parties or become independent like Bernie Sanders is.
Yep.
And I think we'll
Jim Jeffords back in the early 2000s.
Right. I think we'll see some people flip to independent. I mean, Lisa Murkowski is almost independent right now, the senator from Alaska. She ran as a write-in candidate because the Tea Party guy in Alaska won the primary.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, I'm still going to run as a Republican, but as a write-in, and she won.
Yep.
So for me, it makes no sense for her to continue to label herself as a Republican when...
Because it doesn't hurt her either way in terms of her brand.
She would probably even get more support as an independent, from both sides of the aisle.
Right.
But the Democrats are really, we talked last week about their the better plan or what is it?
Deal.
The better deal. I already forgot it. That's how memorable it is.
Man.
The better deal where they are basically trying to reach out to the white working class audience, and they're going even a step farther now because...
Well, hold on. Because I think we should dig into this a little bit deeper, but I do think we should take a break because I'm not nearly as optimistic that we're going to see Republicans flipping sides as we're going to see the Democrats watering down their perspectives and a bunch of other Republicans just going along with exactly what they've been going for and just trying to distance themselves from Trump. But I do think we ought to take a break and then dig into that a little bit more.
Good call.
Yeah, we'll take a moment, let you take a little breather here, get you emotionally ready for this, and we'll go back.
And it felt hollow and empty and not rigorous enough. And I fault them in a way, but mostly I faulted their parents and my parents and our grandparents to say, wait a minute, what have we done to lose the transmission of a work ethic to these kids? And you realize that some of this is a sociological problem. We live at a time in history where work has been so separated from the home that there really isn't much work for kids to do when they're 10 or 12 or 14.
Do you think that Trump will hit back at Ben Sasse and make a Ben's ass joke?
Or what a sasshole.
Totally. Trump is like, let's get sasshole trending.
Seriously. Trump, if you get sasshole trending, hashtag liquid flannel.
Co-trending.
Seriously.
I love that Mike Cernovich has just spent like the last 2 weeks in bed crying.
Can you imagine being married to that dude?
To Mike Cernovich?
He just like periscopes his life, right? Of him just ranting about being like an alpha and taking pills all the time.
Man, well, did you see the one over the weekend
journalism.
where some kid who looked like he was doing a Rushmore cosplay at like an Ann Coulter speech?
That's what I was talking
Saw
about.
him and he's like, gorilla mindset, right? Gorilla mindset, and started following him around. Mike Cernovich is like...
Talking about nootropics.
I'm being assaulted. Like, you're in my personal space. I'm being assaulted right now. And he basically just, like, runs away from it and then continues to periscope about, like, this is gorilla mindset. Like, you find yourself in this kind of position. Like, I just had to get out of there. It's like, that's gorilla mindset?
The funniest part is that dude... He clearly was trying to make fun of Mike Cernovich, as you should. If you ever see Mike Cernovich in person, please mock him relentlessly.
Seriously.
But This dude was doing
Right.
it in a
We
lighthearted way,
endorse it.
and he was like, "Hey man, I've been taking your pills and I haven't slept 12 days."
Right.
And
yeah.
instead of
Right.
Cernovich going like, "Dude, that was great. Like, what's your name? You know, nice to meet you. I'm glad you're a fan,"
I thought
or
he like
something.
hit
Yeah.
him or something.
It was like immediately, "This man's assaulting me. Stay back,
Yeah,
sir."
this man's assaulting me. Like this is the left. They always do this. They're assaulting me. They're threatening me. I wouldn't want to run into Mike Cernovich in real life because his eyes are so close together. I would feel like I was going cross-eyed trying to make eye contact with
Did
him.
you hear? And on the way home from this fan encounter, he periscoped and was like, you could just tell looking at that guy, he wasn't human. He was I don't know if he was like
Yeah.
a replicant or a reptilian or whatever, but you could just tell there was something satanic, an aura around him.
I knew that Cernovich like ran in the same circles as Alex Jones. He was a Pizzagator, but I thought that was about as deep as his conspiracy theorizing got. I didn't realize he was buying into like reptilian or like bee people. I don't know. I think we should make that a thing. That like some people are just like skin suits filled with bees.
Yeah,
Well,
that's going to
he
be in
was
my
the
next
one
D&D
spreading
campaign.
that shit about Hillary Clinton, you know, passing out and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. She did pass out that one time.
Well, she did. but
Yeah, I
he
mean,
was
she might be
spreading-
mentally unstable. Who
He
knows?
was spreading like the cause of it or something as something completely crazy.
Oh,
So-
yeah. They were all talking about how she had really bad Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or something like that. Like, no, it just turns out she's
Yeah.
like a 70-year-old woman who was in the heat and hasn't had more than 4 hours of sleep in 6 months.
Right. She's like a reptilian, so it's probably like some reptilian disease or whatever that only Cernovich would know.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
about her.
I'm sorry, but as a biologist, I have to step in here because a
Herpetologist.
reptilian would have more energy in that kind of heat, not less. They are ectothermic.
Hillary Clinton, reptilian confirmed, unless she wanted us to think that, and she's just faking it to throw us off the trail.
Right. No, she would have been perfect, actually, because the numbers that are coming from climate change scientists are talking about how the DC climate's going to be something like Bahrain in the next, 10 or 15 years. So she actually would have been great. She would have been the most energetic president we've ever had if she were actually a reptilian.
She should have just ran on that strong reptilian platform, She would have drawn that middle class, working class reptilian vote. I mean, that's an underserved demo right there.
I guess you could call that an erectile dysfunction.
Ooh.
Boom.
Well, I think that's a perfect lead in. We wanted to talk about how the Democrats, even though it seems like there's a lot of energy in the progressive left, the activist wing of the party right now, they really, really want those Trump voters so bad. The campaign chief of the Democratic Party came out and said, "Hey, just so everybody knows, there is not a litmus test for Democratic candidates."
Like, there's no litmus test. That's how the statement starts. There's literally no litmus test. There's no thing that we're going to actually hold people to, apparently.
Right.
Sweet.
Like you think gay people should be executed? Like, hey, we're a big tent party.
Yeah, right.
Like-
This isn't purity politics here,
So, but of course, the issue that the litmus test refers to is pro-life, pro-choice. So they're basically saying, hey, Democrats, if you are, thinking about you're a Republican, but you're pro-life, sure, why not? Come on board. We hate Trump together, and then we'll figure it out later. I mean, first of all, do you think this will work? Like, why are they doing this?
No, it won't work. It absolutely won't work because, okay, yes, abortion is a big wedge issue between Democrats and Republicans, but Republican voters, especially white working and middle class Republican voters, have a whole suite of other issues that they hate the Democrats on. There's no way that you're going to get a bunch of people who genuinely believe that the Democrats are like Muslim socialist lizard people to swing on this one issue. All you're going to do is just chase away, even more of like the women who ostensibly should always be voting Democrat.
It's basically you're giving up on a discussion about that issue, right? You're just saying like, we're not even going to talk about it. Like, you want to be pro-life? Like, I don't know. I can't argue against that. So you just do that. You just do that right now. And it's
Just
like,
be ready to explain yourself
Right.
when you get on the stage.
So, this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, is that the Democrats really need to, the abortion is a wedge issue. And even if you start saying like, sure, we're open to pro-life, any hardcore Republican is just going to say like, I don't believe you, because you're being disingenuous, and you are. So what I think Democrats should do is rebrand pro-life, rebrand themselves as pro-life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Say, look, Trump's out there. He wants to bomb Muslims. He wants to murder everybody. He wants the police to beat you in the streets.
Well, I mean, to be fair, so do the Democrats.
Right.
I see where you're going.
And so, that's not pro-life. Republicans support the death penalty. That's not pro-life. Republicans support taking away health care so that people get sick and die. That's not pro-life.
Yeah, they don't support a living wage.
And we also know that the best way to reduce the abortion rate is to bring people out of poverty and fund good sex ed in public schools and provide cheap, easy access contraception. That's how you drop the abortion rate. You don't have to be pro-abortion to be pro-choice.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. If pro-life is more, if you're pro-life, you're not just anti-abortion, you're pro-life. So let's support policies that are actually pro-life. And then if you're pro-life, which party supports more pro-life policies? People, they give up on the argument of saying like, well, look, we tested it. When you have abstinence-only education, the abortion rate skyrockets. And then when you give people access to birth control, it goes back down. Right. So maybe if you don't want the abortion rate to be high, maybe what should we do about that? Mm-hmm. It's not make abortion illegal. That's not going to help.
Right.
And here's the thing you just reminded me of that in this context takes on a brand new life. So there was a poll done not too long ago that was looking at social issues breakdown by different demographics. And one thing that surprised me in it, one thing that didn't surprise me was that the black community, generally Democratic voting, Democratic leaning, were not super in favor of gay rights. But that's pretty easily explained, right? There's a strong religiosity among a lot of black voters. And so when it got to the abortion issue, I was really surprised to find that access to abortion is a thing that something like, I don't know, it was like 60% of black voters support. You're even chasing away at that point, like who you count on to be the quiet voters in your caucus.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, we'll see how that does for them. In the midterm,
I mean, I hope not. I hope we don't see it. I hope that the massive outcry that they saw among their base as soon as that statement came out causes them to go like, oh, shit, maybe this wasn't a great idea. Like, maybe we do actually have to stand for something.
Right.
Because here's the thing. If they're willing to compromise on something like that so many people view as a fundamental, basic human right, a human dignity, what else will they not compromise on?
They basically said it. There's nothing that they're not willing to
exactly.
do.
Trying to snatch loss from the jaws of victory. Nancy Pelosi releases a statement just a couple of days ago after they killed the terrible Senate healthcare bill and said, the Democrats are willing to work with Republicans. Here are a couple of things that were in that bill that we actually might be able to come to the bargaining table on. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, dude.
Why are you doing this?
I thought that was genius because all of the things that she asked for were good things. She said this part of it where you said you'd give more money to the catastrophic fund or whatever. Yeah, we support that part of it. So I think that was actually a clever twist to pick out the increased funding parts of the bill.
But the whole thing still is based in this crappy Republican written Obamacare bill that nobody likes. Like, really nobody likes. People don't want it to go away because it's better than what we had before, but it's not good. Nobody likes it.
Even to put that out there and to just say hey, look, we'll reach across the aisle first. If you're saying well, we give up, we don't know how healthcare works. You got to do something. It sounds like Bernie saying he's going to introduce a single payer bill, to see what's kind of support it gets. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What if Trump comes out and strongly supports it? He's like, I said I would cover everyone and the government would pay for it. And that's what I intend. Me and Bernie are teaming up, getting this done.
I think somebody predicted that, or at least hypothesized it, on this very show several months ago.
That's how you know it'll never happen.
What if Trump actually did just decide to be a political maverick and he's going to come out in favor of a bunch of stuff that has objective support.
If that was his instinct, he probably would have started on that.
Well, but they've been saying the last couple of days that Trump's trying to get all of the Republican Party establishment out of his cabinet, out of his administration. He's really trying to isolate himself from everything at this point. We'll see if it works. I mean, they've got to actually come out with some policy proposals.
What do you think at this point? So many Republicans are starting to speak out against him. Do you think that somebody tries to primary Trump? I mean, do you think that is a realistic possibility that another Republican says, you should nominate me instead of Trump to run for president next time?
I would love it if that would happen. I mean, if they were super smart, what they would do is have him step down at the end of a first term,
or just
citing
decline to run for re-election.
Business or health or family, or he'll never do that. He's too big of an egotist to be able to actually just step down gracefully. I don't know who would run. Mike Pence isn't going to do it.
You could step down ungracefully, that's for sure. And, that's an option for him.
Right.
Rumors are swirling that Mike Pence has begun planning his inauguration party, apparently, or whatever.
Yeah, according to Maxine Waters, though.
Yeah, yeah. She's got the inside scoop, dude.
Maybe.
She called Dollar Tree and she was like, how many red, white, and blue balloons? That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Dude,
I think I know what's going on here.
Although Spicer a few days ago did say that if Pence did run, he would happily serve on his team. So.
Yeah, that was some serious Spicer shade at Trump right there. Be like, I wouldn't. I'm not working for Trump, but if Pence runs, maybe, yeah, I'd love to work for Pence.
Sure.
Great guy.
And speaking of what other Republicans are saying, and this goes back to what we were talking about before the break, both with the these congressmen, the Nevada and the Colorado congresspeople, trying to double down on the Republican Party line and saying it's not that we're not Republicans, it's that Trump is a bad leader for Republicans. We also had this amazing op-ed in the New York Times, the paper of record for the hashtag resistance, publishing from sassy Ben Sasse from our own home state of Nebraska. What to do with kids this summer? Put them to work.
We should almost play some beautiful Nebraska piano-themed background music for Ben
Sure,
Sasse.
yeah, we can make that happen. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Some soaring pastoral music.
Beautiful Nebraska, peaceful prairie land.
Basically, Ben Sasse's argument, see if I got it right from my recollection, was, you know how robots are taking all the jobs? Let's throw away the robots and start using child labor. I think that's what it boiled down to.
Well, I mean, kinda. Mostly, I think the thrust of this article was that, kids these days,
Yeah.
they just don't detassel.
That's it. That's
they don't
literally the
detassel
point.
corn like I did, and I hated it, and they should do the thing that I hated.
There wasn't more to that sentence. It's just like an old man yells at clouds thing. Yeah. So he tells this story about how when he was in high school, he woke up at 4:30 in the morning to go detassel corn, and talks about what a character building experience that was, and how kids don't get summer jobs anymore. And then several paragraphs later is of course that job doesn't really exist anymore because so much of it has been mechanized. But the point remains, kids need to be detasseling.
He was like,
corn.
I sent my daughter out to a cattle ranch to have her impregnate cows and stuff, and
Right, but that was clearly an internship.
Sure.
They paid for her to go and do that.
right.
we sent her
our
to a
daughter-
job that hired her because of her skills. No.
Well, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, if your job is so easy that a 14-year-old can do it, like flipping burgers at McDonald's, and a robot can easily do it, why are we wasting time on anyone doing those jobs, much less children who should be going to school and reading books? It's a complete waste of time.
Absolutely right. Which he acknowledges in the article. And he talks about the value of traveling during the summer and seeing other communities. And he talks about the value of reading and how that exposes your mind to new ideas. And I don't even know what point he's trying to make
Yeah,
here.
bosses don't like it if you do either of those things. Like
Right.
they don't like if you take time off.
Yeah, my boss
or
is
if
always
sit
like, you
around
know what?
reading all the
Yeah,
time.
this is reading week. Just read whatever you want. Don't do any work. Just chill out. Watch TV.
Here's
Like,
your
it's
pink
great.
slip. Read that. Well, and he was talking about how he noticed at Midland University, where he was like the youngest person to be the president of a university.
Right, just like 5 years out of all of his Ivy League education, which, I mean, that's an opportunity most of us get.
Yeah, exactly. But he noticed how few kids, had hard labor experience before they went to school. I understand that parents, worked really hard to provide kids with the opportunities, avoid some of the less savory or, less fun parts of their childhood, and have opportunity, have things that they didn't have. That's the point, isn't it? Just to keep progressing and doing better.
Right. That's like
right.
all the people in the 50s used to be like, I'm working in a coal mine right here. I'm just slaving my life away. And I hope my kids grow up and they have to also work in this
Slave-
coal mine
yeah,
and slave
right, yeah,
away.
That's the American dream.
Because it's character building, I just want a life for my kids that's not better, but is just literally identical to my own life experience in
Exactly.
every way. Because
Exactly.
it was the best.
I don't want them upstaging me or anything.
While we're on this topic, I do want to give a shout out to Paul Musgrave, who's a political scientist and professor at UMass Amherst, who dug into some Bureau of Labor statistics and answered Ben Sasse in so many compelling ways. And he had this whole thread. I'll try to remind myself to post this to the Liquid Flannel Twitter. But he talks about how the teen labor workforce has been dropping for all of these different reasons. One of them is that a lot of them are going to work, but a whole bunch of them are going to summer school. A whole bunch of them are doing unpaid internships. A whole bunch of them are doing volunteer work. And also, a lot of these jobs that kids used to get, these retail jobs, service jobs in particular, that used to provide summer employment for teenagers, is being occupied by like economically disenfranchised like baby boomers. So it's an absolute teardown of this ridiculous, this pastoral fantasy that he has that all these kids can go work on a farm. Like, dude, we just saw a story that came out of the UK that said that like 8 out of 10 UK kids has never seen a cow in real life. Another like 8 out of 10 kids in America live in urban centers. Like, how many lawns are there to mow if you're living downtown? How many, like, how much corn is there to be tasseled if you're living in the middle of Chicago or Minneapolis?
It goes hand in hand with the green roofing initiative.
Right.
Can
I mow your roof,
You
sir?
tie them together.
Right. Well, and I love how he's saying, well, you could still break even with a lemonade stand and everything.
Oh my God, that's the best line, isn't it? You could break even. You could sit out in the sun for 8 hours a day all summer.
People are literally like shutting down lemonade stands, with the police because they're like, well, you don't have a license or permit to do this
Right.
over
Well,
here.
it's Ben Sasse. I assume that he's talking just about white kids.
Well,
Right.
of
Oh,
course, and
absolutely.
better yet, those kids in D.C., those black kids that literally got handcuffed for selling coolers full of bottled water,
Right.
on super hot days. So
Yeah, exactly.
he's definitely not talking about those kids that are right under his freaking nose.
A lemonade stand can at least break even. Like, I thought you were telling people to like work for something. Like, that's literally make work at
Right.
that
Right.
point. You're making your money back that you spent on the
Right.
thing. That's ridiculous.
Like, yeah, you're selling lemonade or
well, he
whatever.
still likes the gig economy.
But
you
yeah,
know?
it's like, you know what? Why don't you go be like Jimmy Carter, go work for Habitat or something? Like, go do something, go do charity
Well,
work
sure.
and things like that. All this stuff about like, well, you should just go work for Monsanto detasseling corn or something. Like, what? No,
Right.
like go do something that actually helps a human person, please.
Well, right. Well, and so many people push this ridiculous notion that sports is a vehicle to an education in university, that you have so many kids that their whole summer is in swim lessons, tennis lessons, golf lessons,
playing travel team, baseball, soccer. You know,
absolutely. And that goes beyond athletics too. You know,
all of those kind of things. Boy Scout.
People who do like speech and debate and stuff, they're in camps also.
You know, there's public high schools where you now have to volunteer X amount of hours in terms of service projects or community service before you can graduate. Times are changing, Ben. We understand that. We get that. It's kind of scary to people, but you know,
Right.
we just have to adapt to it and say what's the equivalent of that. So
no, it's pretty scary for a white junior senator who grew up rich, went to Ivy League schools, and was able to get incredibly gainful employment pretty much directly out of his education. Certainly seems to represent the experience of most people who live in Nebraska, right. I think.
And you know, it's funny too, because this makes me think of Mark Zuckerberg, who's basically trying to retroactively do this by becoming like a rich kid, Harvard kid to a billionaire. And he's like, I never really lived the salt of the earth life. Time to do a road trip to Iowa and eat at all the diners. Meet real America. I bet Ben Sasse and Mark Zuckerberg would be best friends. They should start hanging out.
Right. Well, did Zuckerberg ever go back and graduate? I don't even think he graduated.
They probably gave him some honorary degree or something.
Well,
I don't know.
Of course, for sure. But the point is, it's like, do you think that dude was out detasseling corn when he was, a kid?
Exactly.
I mean, you're tweeting the shit out like on social media that was made by somebody that's never even seen a stalk of corn, let alone, detasseled it. So I don't know. It goes both ways, but.
Well, and also, I mean, publishing his op-ed in the New York Times, he's got to be trying to sell a book or something.
Oh, yeah, he has a book out.
No, he totally is.
Otherwise, shouldn't he be talking to, people in the Midwest about that? Don't we hear all the time that, real America doesn't read the New York Times? What's he doing?
Here was the best thing that Ben Sasse said. During the healthcare debate, Ben Sasse literally put out a statement that was like, most people out there don't want health insurance. Or they only want a catastrophic plan.
What?
Right.
You just don't hear from them because they don't just come to your office and scream, oh, I want a catastrophic plan. Oh, I want a catastrophic plan. But they're out there. You just got to find them, And it's like, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
First of all, these people don't even exist. You're literally just making people up. Or they're people who are parroting back Republican talking points that they don't really comprehend, but they just hear well, that's going to, I heard the deficit was bad and they said it would help the deficit and taxes and I'm going to get my taxes back.
I mean, even Eric Cantor came out last week or a couple weeks ago and basically said, yeah, we kind of knew that the stuff was BS, but when you're riding that aggression, that wave of anger, you're just going to kind of go with it. And it's like, man, well, well, the ironic thing for Ben Sasse is, there was a report that just came out saying Nebraska had the worst performing economy in the country. So, and that's basically due to...
Because they don't put enough teenagers to
Well,
work.
yeah, exactly. Data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis showed that from January through March of this year, the economic output declined by 4% when compared with the final quarter of 2016. The next worst states were South Dakota and Iowa. And it's totally because it's based on, an agriculture economy right now. So, the economy that sheltered us throughout the housing bubble and everything like that collapsing in 2008 or whatever, that's it's not really sustaining us right now. Or it's at least at a dip right now. So it usually goes peaks and valleys, but...
Right. Well, sure. I mean, you've got other countries that are amping up their agricultural prowess. You've got, the sector in the United States doesn't produce as many jobs as it used to because of mechanization. You can't employ a whole bunch of teenagers who are going to spend their money seeing the new Transformers because it's all been mechanized away. When we're productive, all wages go down. That's always been a problem with agriculture, and the Republicans have effectively dismantled any kind of safety net for people who are actually growing food. That's not terribly surprising that it's on the downswing. And then, we also have a whole wing of this country that doesn't believe that climate change is going to have any impact on stuff. When we see historic fires in wheat fields in Kansas last year They don't want to look
Right.
at like cause and effect and go, people have been saying climate patterns, the rainfall patterns that we've gotten used to in our country's literally most productive industry, the backbone of our entire economy.
It freaking blows my mind that Kansas outperformed Nebraska in terms of economic output. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, because Kansas is like the nightmare scenario for an economy.
Well, but yeah, I mean, even Kansas is like, let's expand wind power, let's expand solar power.
Yeah.
And Nebraska's like, nah. Google wanted to build a giant like server farm in Nebraska. And they were like, you know what? In order to do this deal in Nebraska, we think you should increase your wind power by 30%.
right.
And Nebraska was like, no, thank you. And so they literally went like across the river to Iowa. And I was like, yeah, no, wind power, that's a great idea, actually. Thanks.
Right.
We were going to do that anyway.
Jeez.
And so now they have that there. And it's like, it's like a brain drain. You're just driving people away because you're enacting these unpopular policies. You're trying to take people's health care away. You're saying like, well, don't legalize marijuana. Let's make laws against gay people. Don't bake a gay cake. And it's like, maybe I don't want to live here anymore.
Right. Well, I was just gonna say, like the marijuana thing. They're looking at the success of Colorado, Nebraska's neighbor state, and all of these things that they're able to fund now because of the tax revenue that they're getting, and just the basic boost of their economy from like pot tourists and stuff. And instead, what you've got is state legislators petitioning the federal government for like, why aren't you cracking down on this more? Why aren't you protecting our borders from this thing? Like, you guys
When
grow
we could
stuff.
be making so much money on that.
Oh, yeah. No, it's nuts. Yeah, it makes no sense. Not even like, how about just hemp? How about just hemp? It's not even a drug that does anything. It just makes ropes and stuff.
Which Nebraska's already legalized, and they're still not growing it. Yeah.
Well, because who knows what the federal situation is.
They said they have to find regulation for it. The anti-regulation Republicans are like, well, we've got to wait for
Right.
the proper regulations. So that's why.
I think we ended it with a high note again.
Yeah, inadvertently, it always comes back to that, so that's great. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. Be sure to like us on iTunes and rate us on iTunes, and share us with your friends on all social media, and you can find us...
Yeah, we're on Facebook now, so like our Facebook page.
You can find us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, share that. You can find us on YouTube, subscribe to that, and also you can find us as usual on Twitter at liquid_flannel, and you can find me at Shaggy2Trope. Brendan, where can they find you?
I'm at Brendan Williams with one L.
And Matt, where are you at?
I'm at Matt the Great with a W.
And you've been listening to Liquid Flannel. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Adios.
Hey, Flannel Nation. This is the last episode to record on Monday nights. We're moving to recording on Thursdays, which means we can keep our content more topical, and you'll have new episodes to look for by Monday morning in your feed. We'll see you then.